All right, the Hangout is live. Welcome to another edition of Film Geek Primer Live. This one with a bit of a stripped down cast. I seem to only host when we have a stripped down cast. It was me and Tremendo.
Well, I'm hoping that you mean that in terms of that there are less of us, and we're not going to do our own version of Showgirls or something like that.
You obviously did not get the email I sent out.
I continually miss emails. I miss all the important emails.
There is a reason I asked you to dress in layers.
Oh, dang it! Oh my!
All right, so with me as always is well, not as always.
Except not as always, but let's go with it. As always, as in tonight.
John the Shoe Schuster. I guess it's not a the shoe; it's just shoe.
Whatever the hell. You can add the article if you feel inclined.
Yeah. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Yeah, a little bit of a last-minute scramble to get everyone here, and it didn't quite work out. So we're going to keep it short and sweet. I think we'll just do a quick check-in this week and see what everyone's been up to. Why don't we start with you?
Oh, that sounds good. Hey, I guess you would be Shu. I had an experience earlier today that I thought was kind of interesting that maybe we can build on a little bit. I remember during one of our earlier Film Geek Primer Tuesday night conversations, we talked about the movies from 1989. I think Tremendo had done this on the 25th anniversary of Batman, and we broke down some of the other movies that occurred in 1989. And one of you, it might have been Warren, mentioned Major League, the baseball film that came out in 1989. And I remember mentioning then that among baseball fans, and in a number of the summer baseball lists, because during the summer, especially during the dog days, sports-wise, there often isn't a whole heck of a lot to talk about. So you'll go back onto a fallback category, and one of the easy fallback categories is best baseball movies ever.
Sure.
So you come up with some list stuff, and interestingly, Major League lands very high on that list. So I sat down with a friend and told earlier today and said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to watch Major League. So we did.
Do we have a clip? Can we roll that? It totally sounded like you're throwing to a clip. And so I sat down with a friend, and he told me some interesting things. Can we roll that?
Yes. No, sadly, my videographer did a crappy job. My videographer didn't answer the bell.
At the very least, can you do two different voices for you and the other guy?
Yeah, well, I can try, sure. Here's the other voice. I hate this movie. It's predictable. I can't stand it. This is stupid. How in the world could anybody possibly like this film? Yeah, and that was
clarified. Schizophrenia does not count.
That was the gist of 1 hour and 45 minutes of Major League today.
Wow, so it really didn't go over well, huh?
It didn't go over well at all, and maybe it's just a certain taste thing. I mean, in trade, I have to tolerate translation, willingly watch when there isn't anything else, a bunch of Lifetime movies. And movies on the and the films on the Lifetime movie network, which seem to star William R. Moses and Perry King a lot, generally involve crazy women who like the idea of being involved in nuclear families, but to do so they have to blow up the nuclear family to ultimately be disarming themselves. So there's all kinds of craziness going on. So she was okay. She's okay with
you can't have a nuclear family in the first act without having it go off in the third, something like that.
I think it certainly seems that way, doesn't it? Well, Lifetime movies, all of which pretend to be set in California, but are filmed instead in Canada. So the rich, luscious tree lines of Southern California come into the fore in the backgrounds in a lot of these. Generally have a fairly predictable breakdown, but that's okay. That's okay. But you want to get out of the realm a little bit and watch Major League, and that's just an entirely different ballgame. So that was that.
I think there's two directions we can go with.
Yes.
This particular conversation, because it is. I'm with you. It is fertile territory. So first of all, there's that problem of sharing a loved movie with someone when you're not sure how it's going to go over.
Right.
That's a really stressful thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that as I've gotten older, I do less and less.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
I don't. You have to watch this movie anymore. And
right.
Second, really interestingly, the cultural trade-off you discussed. because I had an experience recently at work where, just in the course of conversation, we were talking about that movie Lucy, and
Yes.
we covered it a little bit at work, and I was telling them that I got a sort of rather ashamed confession from my wife, who made an appearance earlier before the show started, that she wanted to see Lucy, and I was like, all right, have at it, enjoy yourself. I have no desire to see that movie, enjoy it. And the people at work immediately, I realized I misspoke, because the people at work immediately categorized it as a conflict. Like there was some discrepancy between my taste and hers. And they were asking...
That led to some sort of riff.
Yeah, and they were asking me what kind of, what sort of stupid movies does she make you watch or whatever. And I was thinking, no, it's not like that. Even people with whom I agree 100% of the time, I don't agree with 100% of the time. Like you can agree with someone's taste quite a bit if you have a critic you like, or if there's a friend you trust, or that sort of thing. But there's always going to be that odd movie out. There's always going to be that one spot in which you disagree. Now,
sure.
I think Santo and I agree a lot, but I think I'm a little more forgiving than he. So there are movies that I enjoy that well, I'll just say it. Stargate. I like Stargate. There it is. I've said it. It's out there.
Wow. Holy crap.
Stargate.
For the entire internet, for the rest of existence, people are going to know that you now like Stargate.
You know something?
Does your wife like Stargate as well?
I think she has to legally.
Is that how that works?
I can't remember exactly what I signed when we got married, but
I don't know the rules of matrimony.
I would be surprised if Stargate was not mentioned in our marriage vows.
Yeah, I was wondering if you gave vows. I don't know. That'd be pretty good.
Yeah, it would have to be. I mean, some people give vows. I gave. This was when I was younger, so I gave a list of movies she had to see. Mm-hmm. It must have been Stargate. That must have been it.
So this was the point in time where you thought that you had to go through the process of, this is a movie I love, this is a movie I love, you're going to love it, you're going to love it, you're going to love it, you're going to love it. And to some point when they didn't, then it was like, oh, you something, and then you were cursing evilly, I know what you mean. I think that's interesting. In fairness, and to be, not that on the record matters here, but I'm actually not the biggest fan of Major League. But I appreciate it for what it is. I think it's way overrated as a baseball movie. I think it's way overrated as a sports comedy as well. But it has some really neat characters along the way, and it's generally a very easy late '80s typical kind of comedy from that era watch. So yes, it's by the books. Yes, you know what's going to happen, but it's perfectly entertaining. I don't think it's great, but it's perfectly entertaining. That aside, I know what you mean in regards to getting to the point where you have to kind of you have to realize and be okay with the sacred cow aspect of trying to convince somebody to go see or appreciate, whether it's music, and this is the art realm as a whole, whether it's music, whether it's television, whether it's books, whether it's cinema. Whether it's theater, whether it's a painting. Nobody sees theater or ballet or opera. Yeah, I just wanted to try to pretend I was artsy and nobody.
Do you still make ballet?
Yeah, I don't know that they. You got to get past that point where there is sort of an epiphany, a revelation that if you build something up too much, almost certainly the thing that's going to happen is that you're going to be disappointed that somebody didn't like it as well as you did. Even if it's great cinema, or even if it's a great book, or what you consider, whatever the art form is in that aspect of it, building it up too much is just going to get you into trouble.
Right, and it doesn't need to be built up, but it's always a bit of a litmus test. Right, so recently someone I know got to see an early preview of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Okay.
And wrote me a direct email. So this wasn't like a tweet or a social media thing. This was a direct email that said, "This movie is amazing. You have to see this movie."
Wow.
So I'm withholding judgment, but there's a lot riding on that. In terms of my opinion of this guy, right? Like, okay, maybe it's wrong. Maybe it's one of those, I underestimated it, and it came in at, a solid B. and for that, it appeared amazing to someone who sort of came in with D-F expectations. But there's a lot writing on that, and it's that element of judging other people by what they like. When you go to a party, is the first thing you do is go check out like their bookshelf and their DVD shelf and judge them based on what they have there.
If I went to parties, that would probably be the case.
What?
But since I don't get invited to parties, probably
I was using parties as a euphemism.
Probably for that specific reason.
I was using parties as a euphemism for breaking into people's houses when they're not there and going
fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
Like you live there, 1 hour photo style.
What, just in case the NSA is the one person watching this live?
Right. Oh, what exactly, how bad would you have to fuck up at the NSA to sign the task of monitoring films and crime?
That's a great question. Imagine the coded debauchery that has to be taking place in this video. You probably have either you or I probably have specific codes behind us in the stuff that makes up our backgrounds.
Right. Or in the pauses, we're conveying messages like Mother Night. Did you ever see that?
Yes. I believe the plot that we've just come up with is significantly better than about 75% of the movies that actually get made. Thank God, NSA.
It's going to be the plot of Lone Ranger 2 somehow. They're going
to
all right. So we're spinning out of control here. I want to get back to Major League.
Yes.
Major League.
And here I want to say some quip about Gore Verbinski, but you just want to get out and make the way. So
we all want to make quips about Gore Verbinski.
Go ahead, man.
I've got some James Michener one-liners I can lay on you as well.
Oh, I can't wait. This podcast is a little like the Winds of War, isn't it?
No,
that's not Michener, is it?
The difference is the Winds of War moved along at a nice pace.
Crap, and I think I blew the literary reference, too. I think that's Herman Woke.
Oh, that's...
I should have just picked any state by random, and I would have had an opportunity to get it right.
And hold on a second. I'm going to spend a minute to see if I can think of a good woke pun. No, but in my defense, I've thought of several, but no good woke puns.
Well, that could work. Good woke on your part.
That was one of them, and you used it.
I don't have the standards that you do.
The high standards.
Because clearly, I mean, you're a guy who can find entertainment out of Transformers, but you're questioning somebody about Ninja Turtles, so, I mean, your highbrow level, and Stargate, your highbrow level is pretty tough to top.
I wish Gabe were here, because I bet he would back me up on Stargate, and if he tried to cut me loose, I would drag him down, and I bet by the end of it, I would get him to admit that he likes Stargate.
Yeah, probably. You'd put him in a DDT.
I would. No, it wouldn't take any moves. It's just I know that he and I share an affinity for a little television show called Ancient Aliens.
Well, no, nice.
Yeah, which is in many ways a spin-off of Stargate. You can look at it that way. It's inspired by...
The greatness of Devlin and Emmerich, yes.
Wait, I'm going to put you on the spot here, because you said something about Major League not being in the tops of your list, and I won't make you do a specific number ranking.
Okay.
Throw out some names that supersede Major League in terms of baseball movies.
Oh, golly. 2 or 3 Ron Shelton films. Field of Dreams. Some people would actually argue Field of Dreams isn't a baseball film. You might as well put it into that category. Certainly Bull Durham is a better film than Major League is. I think Bang the Drum Slowly is a better film than Major League is. I would definitely, and with a lot of, this is one that I find fascinating that isn't included in a lot of baseball movie lists. Many of what you're dealing with sports, kind of meat and potato sports people who put these lists together, is that they don't understand that there was such a thing as cinema before 1985. Okay? So they view Major League as a classic, and they leave off Pride of the Yankees. Okay? Pride of the Yankees is the story about Lou Gehrig.
Oh, yeah. When did that come out?
It's we've got to be looking at... And obviously, within the next few moments, we can look it up. We got to be talking.
You think I'm going to say
the 40s at some point in there. The speech that they borrow from Gehrig in that film
42.
is as emotional and touching and delivered as well, I think you could argue, as any speech like that in the history of cinema. Yet, and it is an absolute must-watch for baseball fans, and captures the entire nostalgia of what baseball is about, which is something that cinema does very well. Baseball and cinema work very well together. And it is never mentioned on these lists, and that I find fascinating. So off the top of my head, that's just 4 or 5 that immediately come to mind.
See, and I think part of the problem is that I don't think baseball and cinema work very well together. It seems
really
hypothetical. Baseball is a very contemplative game. I personally, see, I find baseball boring. There, I said I like Stargate and I find baseball boring, so you'll probably punch me in the face next time I see you in person. And what I've been told is these Facebook posts pop up periodically that say things like, it's okay if you're not into baseball, it's really more of a smart person sport. And I get that, because it's a thinking game, it's a probability game, it's a very specialized physical talent. Like
okay. Before you continue, let me put you off the hook on this one. Okay, anybody who tells you that you find baseball boring and tries to defend it by virtue of being intelligent and smart, and that you don't understand it as a result, is full of shit. Okay. If you don't like something because you view it as boring, that's fine. And frankly, baseball, the reality is that most of America finds baseball boring, okay? And it's not because we've been dumbed down. It's not because we're more stupid than we were before. It's because we think the game is boring and we like something that provides a little bit more physicality, more overt athleticism, and something that hits hard. And that's why that's one of the reasons that football is as popular as it ultimately. So that is an aside. Here's why I think baseball, in the sports realm, baseball and cinema work very well together, because baseball can tell a story of nostalgia, and it can tell a story of romanticism and innocence much better than the other movies can.
All right. Do you think it stands? So would you say baseball stands as a better sport for cinema? Because I can't think of really good sports movies. And I think a lot of this may be the.
I
will mute you. I swear to God, I will mute you.
Sorry, go ahead.
One of the reasons I think it's a poor translation between baseball and cinema is tonally, you're expecting a lot of tropes when you're watching a movie. You're expecting things to go a certain way, and part of what the appeal is of live sports is you don't know exactly what's going to happen. So you're pretty sure in most of these movies when you walk in that Air Bud is going to win at the end, or that in Major League, they're not going to lose and be out of it in the first round of the playoffs, kind of thing. Like you have a pretty good idea that they're going to go the distance, and it's difficult to either get the audience to play along.
Okay.
There's a difficulty. There's a disconnect between what cinema delivers in entertainment and what sports deliver in entertainment.
Let me interject there for a moment, and I'll add a couple more. The Natural and The Bad News Bears are better movies than Major League.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Both great.
In 99% of the movies that you watch, you know the tropes and you know how it's going to get from point A to point B to point C to the end. Why is a baseball movie or a sports movie in general any different than that?
I think that's a fair point. I just think that it's difficult to get a crossover between the two because they're very different types of entertainment consumption. That what you enjoy about a sporting event is difficult to translate into a film. It's that whole cross-media conversation we had a few months back. That idea that if a thing is working in a particular medium, it isn't necessarily going to be easy to translate it into a new medium. You can try to redo it, which is what some of those movies you not redo it. You need to recraft it for the medium, which is why movies like Field of Dreams you don't really care about who's going to win in any baseball game. There's no game to be had. It's the act of playing that is significant in that movie. And the same with, what was the one you were just talking about? The Natural. The same with The Natural. In many ways, it's simply the act of playing the game that is definitive for the character. And I would imagine, though I haven't seen it, I would imagine Pride of the Yankees has a little bit of that as well. That you're not trying to recreate the drama on the field in any way. You are simply letting the cinematic drama play itself out against the backdrop of the sporting event itself. Rocky is another example. It's the character drama played out against this backdrop. Rocky was a good one because it avoided the tropes. You didn't have a winner and a loser. he got around it. He found
in sports generally, it's not good to have a draw.
No, yeah. Tell that to the billion people who watch the World Cup.
I think that's an interesting point. I don't necessarily. And it's interesting that you categorize some movies specifically. I would argue that The Natural's slightly different than the other two examples that you included. By the way, 8 Men Out is a better baseball movie than Major League. But The Natural, it is important that he gets an opportunity to succeed at the plate. That is the payoff basically in the film at the end. And it's a strong movie while you're watching that occur, even though you probably have a pretty good idea that's what's going to happen, you're still sucked into what's taking place. Yeah. So is your general concern, do you have this same issue with football movies and basketball movies and Slapshot and other sports related like now Hoosiers like now you have this entire the Disney sports movie. Person came from humble beginnings, found an opportunity, worked through all the difficulties, became a success at the end, sort of.
Well, I think a movie like that, and generally, I won't single out. I won't single out sports movies in particular. I guess I just would fear that the tropes in there, which we're all highly aware of in all genres and fields, might be too distracting. And then secondarily, what bothers me about the movies I've seen, like Any Given Sunday or Space Jam, the play doesn't feel authentic.
Right.
I've seen things happen a million times on a Sunday, and yet you're making it look a way that I know it doesn't look.
Right.
With direct experience. So, again, I
think that's a very that's a very legitimate argument, and a lot of sports fans even have a tough time dealing with the Hollywood drama ideal to try to fit in aspects of sports that can't possibly happen. Right. And rules that are changed in scenarios that just don't make sense. And I think that's a perfectly legitimate gripe. Beyond that, I think, just as is the case with any genre, some movies do this better than others, and I think there are some good sports movies that can implement pretty darn realistic-ish action scenes along with creating a good story as well. But I think it's precisely because of the issue of trying to combine realistic athleticism in a cinema setting when you're able to watch what actual realistic athleticism is, so you have a point of comparison. It's why baseball, I think, works a little bit better in that regard. And because it's a little slower game, because it's a one-on-one game, because it has a little bit more of that person-to-person drama that takes place, because it harkens back to a slower, more innocent, more romantic, nostalgic time, those elements generally work very well in the aspect of theater to get the baseball movie across a little bit better than some of the other sports movies. And I think that's why, generally speaking, when we talk about sports movies as a whole, while there are exceptions, baseball films tend to be at or near the top of the list.
Yeah, except for a little movie called The Replacements.
Yes.
the certain Oscar award-winning Gene Hackman, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it's not like Gene Hackman is in any way, shape, or form foreign to the sports film.
Right, right. All right, so
So
anyway,
that-
beat that one to death. What so your the person you watched it with did not like it and made their views vocal.
Yes, that they did.
So how do you handle yourself in that situation? Do you defend the film? Do you try to change their minds? Do you just take the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune as they may come?
Now, if I had outrageous fortune, that would be fantastic. I appreciate
After you put on another hit from 1989, after you watch Major League, put on a little outrageous fortune with Bette Midler and Shelley Long.
You know, that would have been significantly better. That will probably end up on the Lifetime Movie Network in the not too distant future.
And George Carlin, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, well done. Well done. You know what? I try to, if I'm going to defend something, I'll defend the time period that it was from, what it was trying to get across, why some other folks liked it. If it's a movie that's closer to me than that, yeah, there may be a little bit more defense, but at some point you got to kind of wave the white flag. I think, Dub, and you recognize this as well, that, you know, people are just going to view something the way they're going to view it, and you tried your damnedest, and maybe they just don't get the value out of it that you ultimately did. What are some of the experiences that come to mind for you in that kind of...
Well, I've got a big one. So a couple of months ago, are you familiar with the TV show The Wire?
Yes.
Widely regarded as one of, if not the greatest television show ever made, a seminal turning point in the history of television. Superlatives can't be thrown at this series.
Yes.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And I really wanted to, my wife had never seen it, and my sister-in-law had never seen it, and I really wanted to expose it to both of them. And we got about 4 episodes in, and the sister-in-law bailed out.
Wow.
Partly in her defense, she deals with a lot of, let's say, real-world trauma, and as part of her day-to-day job, and seeing it portrayed with such verisimilitude was a little bit difficult. Yeah. By the way, that's 2 verisimilitudes in 2 days. I used it yesterday too. I'm really proud of myself.
Let me clap twice then.
And then a few episodes later, not consciously, but due to lack of interest and effort, the wife bailed out. So I don't know what more I can do other than present The Wire and let it speak for itself. I tried not to defend it. I tried not to spoil anything. I tried to sort of let it play out the way I was shown it. So recently I've been in conversations with a few other people, same sister-in-law included, to expose them to what might be my favorite television show of all time, certainly in the top 5, which is Deadwood. And I'm nervous. I'm nervous that this is not going to click the way I think it should. I'm going to be showing it to 2 people who have never seen it before, starting from the beginning, and I don't want to make excuses, and I think I've already built it up too much by saying it's one of my favorite shows, but I'm going to be very curious to see how I react to 2 very intelligent people who know very good culture being exposed to one of my favorite pieces of television. I wouldn't go so far as to call it cinematic entertainment because it's a little bit different, but some of the best writing I've ever seen on television or heard.
Okay. Are obviously the first example you used 2 females. How about this example here for Deadwood?
2 females. 2 females.
Okay.
But the third female who will be there will be my wife, who is a fan along with me.
Okay. Do you think that demographic has a possible issue, that maybe The Wire is a dude show, generally speaking, in generic umbrella terminology, and that perhaps Deadwood is a dude show as well?
I would not be recommending Deadwood to just anyone for those reasons we discussed earlier, that you don't necessarily need to share those things you love. But these 2 women have expressed a deep love and appreciation for Breaking Bad, which is also arguably a dude show. It's
right. Mm-hmm.
But because it's so good, while it could be called that, it certainly transcends that name.
And has, yes.
Limitation, and certainly has with these, so there's going to be 5 of us watching it, 3 women, 4 of us, 3 women and me, and all of us are intense Breaking Bad fans. So gender-wise, I'm going to be out of balance, but culturally, I think we're all going to be on the same page on this one.
Do you have examples in your viewing history off the top of your head of movies that were pitched to you as being great pieces of cinema and you watched it and didn't get the same value out of it that they did?
Let me think. The answer is invariably yes. It's just
while you think, while you work on it, let me give you a couple examples.
Okay.
If you don't have them at the top of your head, let me give you a couple examples.
Go for it.
For me, among that list is The Big Lebowski. I have had a half dozen people tell me the Big Lebowski is the very definition of comedy cinema. That it ranks. If you need to fall back on a film, it needs to rank on the great film. Quote the lines, give them the whole bit. Love every frame of The Big Lebowski. And while I think it's all right, I think it's good. If I never watched The Big Lebowski again, I wouldn't consider it a loss to my overall existence. That's
an interesting one, because I would probably agree with that. To say it's one of my least favorite Coen Brothers movies is to say that it only gets an A-, right?
Right.
There are so many better Coen Brothers movies that everything that is good that I enjoy about The Big Lebowski, I feel was done better in other movies, except maybe pot smoking, which they did really well in The Big Lebowski. But you had other examples?
Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, right.
Yeah, which I think we talked about on an earlier Film Geek Primer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that one just baffles me. I swear everybody I know thinks Big Trouble in Little China is the greatest film ever made.
It's
and there you go. And I just can't. I just don't see it, and never have, and it's never worked. And even to the point where Kurt Russell respects people. Clearly, Kurt Russell, who I love, doesn't respect me because he has a higher regard for people who like Big Trouble in Little China than he does, Escape from New York and The Thing. So, or of course, Captain Ron. So, I feel like kind of out of it here.
Yeah, there are certainly degrees in the movies you mentioned there. I just have to point out that I like The Thing more than I like Big Trouble in Little China. But I threw it on after our discussion. I feel guilty about this in a weird way because there are so many movies I need to watch that are available, like streaming on Netflix. There's no reason for me to be watching this movie that I've seen like easily 20 times in the course of my life. I've easily seen Big Trouble in Little China 20 times in the course of my life. And I'm flipping through Netflix and I was like, oh, hey, Big Trouble in Little China. Let's throw that on. And I watched it beginning to end, stayed up way later than I needed to, and regretted nothing. I enjoy that movie so much. But yeah, I could see how someone.
So when you get around to that one, it's sort of like, well, Schuster, you're just not going to come on board. And I'm sure people wanted to punch me out as a result, or wonder, why I'm a little bit sicker than normal. But those are 2 examples where I just don't get the passion that they have behind those films. So it's certainly something that works both ways as well. And as long as you can just move on and go from there. All right, you gave it a go. And they gave it a go, too. All right, that's okay.
Fair enough. Yeah, the one that comes to mind that I can think of is Fifth Element. I can't sit through that movie.
Okay, who told you that Fifth Element was a great film?
Well, I actually saw it. It wasn't so much it was word of mouth among my friends at the time, all of which I've made my peace with. And it's retained this cult status. Beyond cult, I think people actually legitimately enjoy it. It's considered a legitimate action film, and I've heard people mention it in the same breath as movies like Aliens.
They should stop.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
The only way that Fifth Element should be mentioned in the same sentence and the same breath as Aliens is The Fifth Element is nowhere near as good as either of the Alien films.
That's a perfectly acceptable Yeah, it's perfectly acceptable. Oh, what else was it? There was a movie recently. It was one of those mumblecore movies, and I had to turn it off because it was so bad. Maybe it was Drinking Buddies.
Hmm.
It was one of those movies that got good word of mouth. Yeah, that's not going to come to me in time. And long silences don't work in a podcast.
I've heard that, yeah.
Or I haven't heard that.
Oh, well said.
Right, so what's on your plate? What's coming up?
I don't have any idea. I just happen to see movies whenever they pop up, and right now it's kind of they're kind of doldrums at the Chiefs right now. So I'm in a little negative pocket that isn't working particularly well for me. I've seen enough of the stuff that came out early, but I've got some free movie passes, so maybe I can get around to seeing the Planet of the Apes sequel, or Lucy, or Hercules. Those seem like they're right up my alley. I don't want to see good stuff. I don't want any part of good stuff. Maybe I can get excited about the November Man. I don't know. And I've seen a lot of advertising for Pierce Brosnan here lately, and he brings in a big crowd, so that's going to be a gem. But yeah,
in LA, we get inundated with advertising, billboards and bus ads and
right.
Everything. Like even movies that you may never heard of, at least has one or two buses with it painted on the side. And all I've seen is a single billboard for November Man. Like that's it.
Huh. Well, they must be going for that niche market and saying screw LA. It's a very limited advertising budget they possess.
It just occurs to me there's a third phase in our conversation about exposing people to other movies, because I have plans to show Deadwood, and I'm certainly nervous about that, to see how the ladies respond. But I also recently found out that my wife never saw Road Warrior.
Wow.
And what's fun about that is I am 100% confident she's going to love it.
There you go.
Like there's nothing bad in the Road Warrior. It's so pure, it's so simple. I should start mentioning it in when I have action movie conversations with people, and we talk about sort of these action movies that are better than just an action movie. Your Die Hards, your Aliens. I always throw in First Blood, certainly.
Other people on this podcast might suggest Fifth Element, but we'll discard them.
Well, Santo's not here. And First Blood, I want to throw that one out there. I should probably start throwing in the Road Warrior, because I think
that's a really good idea.
It's so pure. It has such a simple storyline. It's very basic. It's elemental in a lot of ways. Yeah, So I'm really excited to rewatch that.
I think that would be great. That'd be really interesting. And it will not be, thankfully, Fifth Elemental.
Hey, I'm surprised you were able to woke that one in.
Nicely done. Nicely done.
What I did there? I put it
I saw.
Here. Or when I did it later.
I saw, and I applauded. You have any essentials this week, Dub? Before we get out of here?
The one that I was actually going to talk about, and I couldn't remember if we had talked about it before, is I was thinking of comedies. I was thinking of essential comedies, and it's relatively recent, given what we normally talk about, but Top Secret. If anyone here hasn't seen Top Secret, that's part of the trilogy of perfection that the Zucker-Abrams trio put out in the early 80s, and it was the first Airplane, it's Top Secret, and it's the first Naked Gun. As far as I'm concerned, that's an immortal legacy. Those three movies sort of cement your position in comedy history forever, and it's nice that you're still working and trying other things, but you've done it. You've done the thing you're going to do. You've painted your Mona Lisa. You've created high art, and the culture thanks you for it, and we'll support you by going to see what did he direct, First Night, and didn't Zucker go on to try and do some serious stuff? I paid for that in the theater because I was like, I hope it's as funny as Airplane.
Was it? No, it wasn't. Oh, that's sad. That's a shame. What a bummer.
Top Secret was one that I wanted to throw out because one of the fun things about it is how strangely referential it is to movies and genres that most people, even at the time, would have been sort of barely familiar with. Like it was not current in any way. It was, the airport movies, they were cranking 2 or 3 of those out a year, right, when Airplane came out. When Top Secret came out, they weren't making a lot of World War II movies anymore. and surfer musicals weren't exactly in vogue. And so to say, I'm going to make a World War II spy surfer musical took some guts. And then it took brilliant writing to pull off what they do in it. So I was going to throw out Top Secret with a sort of Airplane, first Naked Gun side dishes.
Do you have a comedy troupe that you like better than others? Is there a top of the line comedy grouping for you? Are the Zuckers at the pinnacle?
Well, they would have been, and for sheer output, they would have been towards the top of the list for many years. Probably would have duked it out with a lot of early Woody Allen, as far as I'm concerned, is
I'm with you, and I've had conversations. I think Tremendo was in town a couple weeks ago, and coincidentally, we talked about Bananas.
Oh yeah.
Which I think is the best bookend comedy I've ever seen in cinema. The first 10 minutes, if Bananas was a 20-minute skit, it'd be the greatest piece of comedy ever on film. The first 10 minutes are amazing. The last 10 minutes are amazing. The middle of it's almost unwatchable. It's just
no. I disagree.
It really hits some rough patches, but the beginning and the end are just incredible. And
the early Woody Allen, I think there's
I'd agree with you there. Yeah,
there's some Marx Brothers stuff that I would put in there, and probably the Steve Martin movies, though I know he's not really the creative hand in all of them.
Interesting.
But like The Jerk and The Lonely Guy, The Man with Two Brains, right through. He wasn't a writer, but Three Amigos, he certainly stands out for me. But recently, there's a young upstart kid who shot his way towards the top of my comedy pantheon with a single movie that still makes me laugh as if I'm seeing it for the first time just about every time I watch it, and that's Zoolander. Zoolander has instantaneously, from the moment I saw it in the theater, it just became like the funniest thing I'd ever seen. And I watch it again and again, and even parts of it, my youngest son was pretending like he was a mermaid. And so what I taught him to do is every time I call him a mermaid, he comes back at me and says, "Merman, Dad. Merman."
It's good that you're passing along important lessons.
Well, I'm also teaching him about gravity and the rotation of the Earth and stuff like that, but I'm also getting in my Zoolander. So this cracked up a few other people in the house, and we watched just that scene. And I was, again, just we're watching just that scene, and I'm cracking up just like I did the first time. And so Ben Stiller, and I enjoyed Tropic Thunder, but it wasn't great. But Ben Stiller, who I wasn't a big fan of his show, I can't quite put him in the pantheon yet, but he has done this one thing that has unquestionably touched me deeply.
Do you like Dodgeball?
Who are some of your comic pantheons?
Woody Allen, definitely. We definitely land in the same category as far as Woody Allen is concerned. It's probably hard to argue that Mel Brooks.
Oh my God! Of course,
yeah,
of course.
Right, has a group in there it's pretty hard. Those are pretty iconic. Blazing Saddles is a pretty iconic film.
Yeah.
Your Ben Stiller example, I think, is pretty good, but he's one of those that has moments that are really well done, and then a lot of stuff that sort of just blends and dissolves as well. I'll tell you a guy who coincidentally I was going to put on as my essential this week, who isn't particularly well known, but it's a movie that I absolutely adore, and it's very vaudevillian, and it's kind of slapsticky, and it's basically a modernized silent film. The actor basically portrays it, never says anything. He portrays it as if it's a silent film. I guess while it's at the top of my head, some of the Peter Sellers works are certainly entertaining. Jacques Tati is the gentleman's name. is a movie called Mr. Hulot's Holiday, which is a throwback to basically silent film vaudeville.
Huh.
And it is fantastic. And
say the title again.
Mr. Hulot, Hulot, Mr. Hulot's Holiday. The actor is Jacques Tati. I think he's also the director. It's really a fascinating watch in terms of comic timing and choreography, and a very, very different, but in the process a very enjoyable film as well.
Huh. I'm very curious.
So there you go.
All right, that's a good one. I wonder if that's probably not streaming, right?
No, I don't think it is. That one's sort of tough to track down. I even looked. I thought maybe it would be in the Criterion collection, but it doesn't seem to be there either on Hulu.
Might be some. I was gonna say it might be some random Hulu, right?
Yes. Yes. What's up with you this week? Before we get out of here.
Say again.
What's up with you this week?
Oh, looking to schedule some Deadwood and Road Warrior time.
All right, nice. You got it laid out. You got a good weekend ahead of you. Do
you watch a lot of anime?
It's been a while. I used to watch it a little bit more than I do now. I haven't seen anything lately. So if you're asking anything that's come out that's new, probably within the last 10 years, I'm out of my realm. But I can be functional in the Akira, Ghost in the Shell, Evangelion, Cowboy Bebop category.
No, it's none of that. There's one called Attack on Titan, and Cartoon Network's running it, but it's also streaming on Netflix. I heard a couple of good things about it. I like to, if I hear about something from like more than one avenue, I'll sort of give it a go.
Right.
Our dear friend Warren, he was a fan of it, and another friend of mine who normally doesn't post anything about TV or movies said that they were watching it, so I thought I'll give it a go, and it was good, and it was weird and dark, and
really?
I was hoping to sort of dig back into that this week. It's short, it's bite-sized. I mean, my problem is with my media diet, I can't.
Right, sure.
This podcast we do is like the longest stretch of staring at a screen I have at home sometimes. But these are 22 minutes.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to get that.
Is it on Netflix?
It's on Netflix.
Okay, all right, I can give that a go. Interesting.
I'm still working my way through Firefly.
Okay.
I guess this is a lot of TV. Maybe I'm the TV guy here.
Yeah, perhaps. We can venture into on-screen entertainment, whatever that realm may include.
Right. Geeks aplenty.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
I guess if Tremendo can talk about the print medium with his posters.
Right. You know what we also did a phenomenal job of? We didn't mention Guardians of the Galaxy once.
No, thank God. Thank God. I'm hoping to see that this week too, but I don't know.
There you go. All right. Maybe for next week's FGP, Dub can get us up to speed.
Well, Santo was talking about getting together on a Friday and doing a review show. I'm wondering if I can see it by Friday.
Yeah, maybe.
You could do that? All right. All right. I realized I didn't let you play the theme song. Would you like?
That's all right. I left the musical instrument across the room, so we can go without. I don't feel like I don't feel like extricating myself right now to utilize the I don't feel like doing that.
All right, I wish I had said our decent goodbyes before the song, but you can find me at Film Geek Dub, and you can find Shu at
Shuniverse.
Spell it.
SEH Universe.
There it is. All right.
There it is.
Thank you, one person, for joining us, and we'll be seeing you next week.
All right, man.